Hello and welcome to our virtual tour, a preview of lovely regions of southern France. I'm Jacinta Pereira, owner and founder of Island Getaways. And although I am an island expert, I'm also an expert for cruising. I'm an accredited and master cruise counselor, and I love river cruising. It's a wonderful way to travel. And my partner today, my co-host, is Brian Rademacher, who you'll recognize from our 2021 series. He's back again, and we recently covered Provence on its own, paired with Barcelona and Spain. But today we're taking a little deeper dive into this area and looking at Burgundy and Provence. Brian, as you may remember, is a business manager for Alma Waterways, one of my top recommendations, a 5-star premium line. A company that I've enjoyed working with for 10 years. I've been on their river cruises. I've sent many happy travelers on their cruise tours. And so we are going to get started very quickly so that you can take a look at all of the experiences and imagine yourself actually being there. Indeed. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Jacinta. Yeah. Now we get to go back out there. We get off this virtual stuff, but this is a great idea that Jacinta had, which is to have these little vignettes, if you will, 30-minute sort of introductions to different itineraries to whet your appetite for getting back out there. And we are definitely seeing people come off the sidelines now to come back to traveling. And river cruising pre-pandemic was very, very popular for a whole bunch of reasons. Many of those reasons are even more accentuated now in whatever era we're in by the intimate smaller ships, et cetera. So we're seeing a tremendous rebound, particularly for later this year, latter part of 22, and then the bookings for 23.
Absolutely.
We're 30% booked for next year. We're already almost a third booked for 2023. So now, whenever you're seeing this, now is a good time to book. So you're going to watch this on recording. So thank you, Jacinta, for inviting on the waterways and inviting me. And yeah, I'm in Sonoma County in Petaluma, Northern California sales guy. And Jacinta and I have done a number of these, so we're happy to be back. And so without further ado, I'm going to take myself off camera for the moment.
Yes, I will as well.
And I will come back a little later on as we wrap up. But in the meantime, I want you to just focus on the beautiful pictures that we're going to be showing here. So bye for now. Turn that off. Okay, very good. And bye, Jacinta. We'll see you a little bit later.
Just need to turn it off.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. So what could be better than combining not only Provence, but Burgundy as well? You know, France, we have 5 different itineraries, but this is the newest itinerary that we introduced actually last year in 2021. And so we started cruising in July of last year in 21. And of course, we're cruising now, this is May that we're recording this. And this has proven to be an incredibly popular itinerary amongst our guests. Again, a new one for us. And so Jacinta wisely wanted to do a little vignette on this particular program. You can't go wrong in France. And then, as I say, this itinerary you will absolutely love. So let's dive in and go forward here. There is Jacinta's contact info. Hopefully you all have that anyway, but nonetheless, there it is, jp@islandgetawaystravel.com, and her phone number there. That's me. You might say, gosh, you look different. Yes, that's 5 years ago. Indeed. So I need to have truth in advertising and update my photo. But nonetheless, there we are. I'm, as Jacinta said, the sales guy for Northern California. And we do 97% of our bookings come through the traditional travel agency channel. And so I work closely with Jacinta. We do work closely together. And so again, happy to be your host today. Again, thank you for taking time out to watch this, again, vignette of Essence of Burgundy and Provence. We always show this image. That's evocative as well. Obviously, oceans take you to the countries, rivers take you through them. We say we cruise sort of through the veins of Europe to the heart of Europe. These were the roads of old. Commerce was established. You can see how bucolic and beautiful they are, and it certainly applies to the Saône and the Rhone that you'll be seeing here momentarily. And again, just a little bit about us in terms of what we bring to the table, our brand strengths, truths, marketing truths, if you will. These are all things that we promise to deliver to you. I always say that if I I could only name one of these things. There it is, the staff and crew. Everything else is important, but in order to deliver everything on this bullet point list, you have to have this, which is the exceptional staff and crew. So that's the one I kind of hone in on. The ship is beautiful, all the things that we do really quite nice, but again, it's the crew who brings the whole experience to bear and to life, and what you'll remember certainly about your experience with AMA Waterways. So, but we'll do all of this for you. We've been family owned for the last 20 years. July 1st, coming up here, not too far from now, will be our 20th anniversary as a company, right? So we're happy to be around that length of time. And as I say, I've been there with AMA for 5 years. These are companies that kind of vetted different river cruise lines that wanted to have river cruise product in their repertoire in terms of what they do and offer to their clientele, if you will. And they vetted everybody and came knocking on our door, right? So you all know Disney. Backroads is in Berkeley. They're active travel company. National Geographic, who hasn't heard of that? Ancestry.com, we all know about them these days. So we work with all these companies, and again, they chose to work with us after they vetted in many different ways various river cruise companies, so we're happy about that. Now, this will be your beautiful ship that you'll be cruising on the Saône and the Rhone, which is the Amacello, right? She only carries 144 guests. Now, part of the rebound, if you will, of travel, and specifically the rebound of river cruising, is that, as you might imagine, there's a general feeling out there that we wholeheartedly agree with, as you might imagine, that people are gravitating to smaller, more intimate vessels, right? And so they present a lot of their own inherent values. But in light of the current environment in which we're in, people, if they have to decide, are leaning towards smaller, more intimate ships. And that ship at 144 guests fits the bill for sure. I just put this picture in because I thought it, again, was quite evocative of the beautiful experience with the vineyards, of course, the antiquities of the area that you're going to experience. So there's history, there's culinary, there's arts, there's culture. All of it exists throughout this beautiful area of France that you're going to be cruising. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a north to south itinerary, keeping in mind that you can do the reverse and do from the south to the north. So today we're going to start in Geneva, where we can do a 3-night pre-cruise in Geneva. That's, as I say, a new program for us that started last year, continuing in to this year, 2022, and then finish with 3 nights in Barcelona in Spain. But in the meantime, this whole area in this region, the Saône region from Dijon, which we all, of course, when we think of Dijon, many of us will think of the Dijon mustard, right? But this area from way up north here in Dijon, literally all the way down to Lyon, that is known as the Gastronomic Valley, if you will, of France. And that's saying something, because France is certainly known for its culinary, its Epicurean, its gastronomy. But to say then that this area, Dijon, all the way down to Lyon, that this is sort of the epicenter for that is, again, saying quite a bit. And so you're going to be in that area. And you can see all these Beaune, Chalon-sur-Saône, Tournon, Clooney, Mâcon, Villefranche-sur-Saône, Lyon, Vienne, Valence, right? And the only reason I say those correctly is because we have pronunciation guides, because I don't speak French. Nonetheless, I do have a neighbor, though, that is from Chalon-sur-Saône. She lives around the corner. She has always said to me, if you ever need help with pronunciation, just let me know. But anyway, that is the itinerary. So you get Switzerland, obviously France and Spain as well. Now, obviously, too, here, you're in this incredible wine area, right? With Northern Rhone, the Syrahs from this area, of course, Beaujolais, we all know, in the Southern Rhone, the Grenache, and then these names, Côte de Rhone, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and then Provence. I mean, all of this is, again, incredibly wonderful wine country. And yes, you do have the opportunity to visit these places on these cruises. More specifically, there are a number of these departures with Essence of Burgundy and Provence that are what are called celebration of wine cruises. And what we do is we accentuate the wine experience even more than we normally do. And the way that we do that is we bring on guest winemakers, right, from various places. And so these guest winemakers, they do tastings on board, they do a wine pair dinner, just a whole variety of things. Of course, there are wine-themed excursions, as you might imagine, in this part of France. Jacinta, if you are so inclined to want to look at specifically a celebration of wine cruise that has a guest winemaker on board, she can give you those departure dates that we have for 22 and for 23, where for this itinerary, Essence of Burgundy and Provence, which it doesn't get much better, I would say this itinerary and Bordeaux, Provence as well, these three are certainly ones that you'd gravitate towards if you are an oenophile, you like good wine, good food. And again, just can tell you those dates, they'll have a guest winemaker. Now, this ship is what's called a French balcony vessel, right? So the accommodations, the higher up accommodations have what's called a French balcony, which of course in France might make sense to have French balcony. But anyway, it's a sliding glass window, of course, and a railing here, right? Very comfortable accommodations indeed. This is the lounge area that you'll gather on the ship. There's lectures each evening. We do have music each evening, dancing each evening. So just the living room of the vessel. This is sort of the main dining room that you'll dine each evening. The food is amazing. We'll talk about that here momentarily. There's also a wonderful chef's table. A chef's table is an alternative dining where you get a tasting menu paired with the local wines, and everyone gets to enjoy that at least once a cruise, right? The chef's table. So this is talking about both the sourcing and the integrity of the food on board, which is superb, just amazing. And when you think of our ships as being really kind of small restaurants, which they are, then the food quality is really remarkable, right? Everything is fresh and locally sourced. Literally, only ice cream is frozen. That is it. Nothing else is frozen. We literally have no microwaves on board. Cage-free eggs, freight-free pork, fresh fish. It's just amazing. And you can, if you're so inclined, if you want to do this, go with the chefs to the local markets in port as they go on their shopping rounds for the food that will be served on board. So the reason everything tastes so fresh and local is because it is fresh and local, right? We're also very proud, particularly in France, of not only being members, to be invited to be members of Chaîne de Retousseurs, which is French for the goose cookers, starting in 1248, reconstituted in 1950, but recently, Robert Kellerhals here, our executive chef, because of his acumen in terms of all things gastronomic, was invited to become a member of Tables l'Auberge de France. And that, within France, is about as high an award as you can get in terms of being invited to join Tables l'Auberge de France, right? Very, very prestigious. So that's something we are sort of proud and kind of brag about, because we're the only river cruise line that has that distinction of being members of Tables l'Auberge de France, right? So this is everything that happens culinary on board, multi-course dinners, fresh and locally sourced. By the way, any dietary needs, just let Jacinta know. The ship likes to know in advance. If you don't, you can always let them know when you get on board, right? Local wine and beer with meals, mimosas in the morning, cocktail party every night, and the wine changes at lunch and dinner. The varietals, I should say, change. So, for example, if you like last night's white wine more than tonight's, just ask for that, right? And by the way, it always reminds me to tell you that when you're visiting these wonderful wineries, many of them don't send the wine to America, right? So you might be able to maybe pack a couple of bottles in your suitcase with bubble wrap, but otherwise you can bring the wine back to the ship to share with your fellow guests or the folks you're traveling with, because we don't have a corkage fee on board. I like to say, in terms of what you're going to be doing off the vessel, that we've always practiced social distancing. I mean, what do I mean by that? Well, because we've always broken up the ship's complement of guests into smaller groups, typically by pace level, right? Gentle, regular, active, late riser, you name it. So what happens is the average group size is 15 to 20 guests. So smaller groups, which again, as you might imagine, is in vogue these days amongst folks in terms of what they might be looking for. So, and these are included, right? They're included in the price. So the value proposition is also really inherent here and worth mentioning, in that, yes, you may pay more upfront for a river cruise, but you have to keep in mind, and Jacinta will make sure you keep in mind, the value in terms of you're paying for almost everything We'll talk about the few things you're not paying for at the end, but nearly 90+% of the experience you're paying for up front. There's bikes on board. People love to ride the bikes, whether it's part of a guided tour. There's always a guide at the front and the rear for the fastest and slowest riders. There's hiking as well. There's wine tasting and visits to wineries. There's cultural experiences, art history, museum, across the board. And this is where, again, where it says wide variety. I'm showing sort of the active ones here. And we're kind of known for that, but you don't have to be active. You can do whatever it is you would like to do, and you pick and choose what it is. I like this picture because I love dogs, number one. I don't eat truffles very often, quite frankly, but on this itinerary, this is kind of evocative as well, because you're going to go black truffle hunting if you're so inclined. It's an optional excursion to go to a truffle farm, and that looks like he might be part doodle there, but they don't use the pigs anymore. They have to use the dogs to go find these very, very luxurious and exotic tasting black truffles that you will get to enjoy once this fellow or feline, him or her, I'm not sure if it's a boy or girl dog, finds these wonderful truffles. I put this picture in because we have certified wellness instructors on every cruise that we do in Europe, and that's very popular. And the cool thing is they're only there for wellness. So he's not doubling up as your waiter at night and he's yoga instructor during the day. Nope, he's just, or she, for your enjoyment as far as different yoga classes, core strengthening, stretching, cardio, a whole variety of classes. So I'm going to run you quickly through some of the sort of iconic areas, wine areas that you will have the opportunity to be in and experience. The Pouilly-Fuissé area, obviously Beaujolais. These are, again, iconic names that you've probably heard of before if you like wine at all. Even if you're not a wine drinker, you've probably heard of these places. The Côte Rôtie, and look at the incredible sort of terraced vineyards, right? I live up in Sonoma County. We have a little bit of this in some of areas, the more hilly areas of Sonoma County, but you'll see a lot of it certainly on this itinerary in France. There's more l'Hermitage or Hermitage area, Paul Jabolet, Ani, and then Cornas is another region as well that you'll visit. And then everyone, Avignon, the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So these are just, again, some of the wonderful areas you'll have a chance to visit. And this area, the Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and interestingly enough, the way the French do it, they frankly rely on Mother Nature. They don't do a lot of irrigating, right? They're kind of on their own. They rely on Mother Nature. So this particular soil and the hardiness and strength of these vines, which kind of you can see pictured here, these old gnarled vines, and the kind of wine that they produce is world renowned. All right, so we're going to start, as I say, up in the north in Geneva, Switzerland. And again, this is a new program for us as far as including Geneva in any of our pre or post land programs. And here you see beautiful Lake Geneva. And of course, Geneva, known as the Peace City and the gateway to the Swiss Alps. And you do get breakfast each morning on these land programs that we do, right? So I want to make mention of that. And then you do have a chance on one of your excursions to visit Annecy, France. And Annecy, it's called the Pearl of the French Alps. It's kind of sort of like Venice in that it has incredible canals, beautiful castles. You'll visit a Chateau d'Annecy, which is the home to the Counts of Geneva. It has beautiful bike trails as well that wind along the lake. You'll also visit the Chillon Castle as well. So visiting Annecy is a real highlight indeed. And then, as I say, you start in the Burgundy region, right? In the Chalon-sur-Saône is where you're going to embark. So you will transfer, and then while you're transferring, you're going to visit Dijon. So the ship doesn't actually call on Dijon, but when you transfer from Geneva, you will then go to Dijon for a walking tour, and it's a beautifully picturesque capital of the Burgundy region, obviously renowned for its mustard, but it's also one of the best preserved medieval centers in all of France. So picture perfect architecture, very, very beautiful indeed. So you'll have free time there and free time for your lunch there. And then later, you're going to board your ship for your 7-night cruise. And of course, during this cruise, as I showed you earlier, you're going to visit these very famous countryside areas and vineyards. And many of them, as you can see, are smaller and family owned and really unique. And why it is that if you like their wine, you're going to want to buy a couple bottles to pack or certainly to sample on board the vessel, right? So this is the embark place. It's a Chalon-sur-Saône, which again is in the southern Burgundy area and in the heart of the Côte Chalonnaise wine region. And again, it also has a medieval past, which you'll discover on your historic city tour. There's also an excursion that goes to Beaune, which is a walled town nestled near the heart of the Côte d'Or of the vineyards, cobblestone streets, really quite amazing. The Hotel de Beaune was a hospital back in the 15th century. You'll have a chance to visit that. And believe it or not, for medicinal purposes at that hospital, at the Hotel de Beaune, they served wine for medicinal purposes, which I couldn't agree with more, quite frankly, indeed. This incredible royal monastery of Brou, and of course, obviously in these opportunities along these cruises, there are always incredible monasteries to visit. This is being one of them. This is one of the smaller monasteries, certainly in all of France. I know one of our French cruise managers, who Camille actually, whose parents live in Annecy. She always says this royal monastery of Brou is her favorite monastery in all of France. So coming from her, that's quite something indeed. And then Tournos is another incredibly interesting place that you'll visit. And again, you see the Romans were here, right? The Romans got all over Europe. So a lot of the Roman architecture exists in this part of the itinerary in Tournos. There is that, again, incredible Hospice de Beaune. And with this tiled roof, that shows you the amount of money that they had, because that's saying something to be able to tile the roof of the Hospice de Beaune with this tile. And you'll go in and see, and this was really a hospital, quite frankly, back in the 15th century. So really quite amazing indeed. Mâcon is also a place that you'll visit, a beautiful setting here on the Saône River. And then Chateau Cormetan, another, again, incredible chateau, family owned, I think literally in the same family for 8 centuries, right? So cool, interesting place to visit here. The Clooney Abbey, it's actually in near Mâcon, and so you'll enjoy the Clooney Abbey as well. And it's known for how large of abbey it is. It's one of the largest abbeys, again, in all of France. So the monastery of Brou, one of the smallest, the monastery, but the Clooney Abbey, one of the largest in all of France. You see the serpentine nature of the Saône pictured here, and Villefranche-sur-Saône, and again, how incredibly beautiful this is, and serpentine a river it is. So less traffic on this part of the river in this part of Burgundy, so that's kind of nice as well. And then you come to Lyon. You're now beginning the part of the cruise that's taking you from the Saône to the Rhone River. And Lyon is the gastronomic capital of France. Some argue the gastronomic capital of all of Europe. And it is really, really fantastic. Culinary delights galore. You will thoroughly enjoy being here in Lyon. Vienne also, this area is a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has a 19th century basilica, the Notre Dame de Fouviers. There are obviously wonderful Roman ruins here that you can enjoy. There's bike tours here in Vienne as well. Again, it's picking and choosing what it is that you would like to do, but a whole host and variety of opportunities, including back to Lyon. I should mention, ladies who are watching this, the silk scarves. Lyon is known for its beautiful silk scarves. So you might want to take advantage of that, along with all the wonderful culinary aspects of visiting this area as well. Here in Valence, there is this Saint Apollinaris Cathedral. Again, these are opportunities. You might think, are we going to see our cathedrals and monasteries? No, there's plenty of other things, but these are certainly highlights that people enjoy. And this reminds me, you're going to want to download the My Ama Cruise app that you can put on your handheld device, and then it keeps track of all these things for you in the app, such that you don't have to memorize things. The app will do that for you in terms of all these incredible places that you are visiting along the way. Coming as you are heading south, coming towards Avignon and Tarascon, this area, as you can see how bucolic and beautiful this is. This is in here in Tarascon is one of the more popular villages to just walk around and enjoy. We do some bike tours in here as well if you're so inclined, so people thoroughly enjoy. And this is the nice thing about being on a river cruise. You're in larger cities like Lyon, you're up in Geneva, but then you're also visiting places like Tarascon and coming to Avignon. And of course, Avignon was known as the city of popes because in the 14th century, the Palais des Papes, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, was literally moved here to Avignon, and you have a chance to visit that particular site as well. Arles, of course, is where the cruise ends. The ship is actually able to pull into Arles, which is quite nice, and there's a lot of Roman history, as you can see, the Roman Amphitheater here. This is also an area to visit because if you like Vincent van Gogh, and who doesn't, he spent a great deal of his life in Arles, here in the Rhone area, and doing a lot of his painting here. So the opportunity to go and visit and see some of his artwork, as well as the Vincent van Gogh Foundation, to learn more of his life and what he did in this part of France, is really compelling as well, and I highly recommend it. In terms of the post-cruise opportunity then, it is 3 nights in Barcelona, Spain. World-class city, lots of things to see and do. Obviously, I know Jacinta has been there. It is quite wonderful indeed. One of the highlights, certainly, and this is when you've left the ship in Arles and you're heading down to Barcelona, is we do a stop here at the Benedictine monastery. It's the Santa Maria de Montserrat monastery, and the setting is amazing. This monastery, which gives you this incredible view of the Catalonian landscape, it was founded in 1025, right? In 1025, and then pilgrims and visitors contributed as they kept coming, because there were stories of miracles and wonders performed by the Virgin Mary. And so the whole Montserrat is built around facilitating the worship of what's called the Black Madonna in the Basilica. So you'll have a chance to see the Black Madonna sculpture that's here in this abbey. And so I just think that picture is absolutely stupendous, and the way it was built into the side of the mountain here. And this is on your way, as I say, coming to Barcelona, right? And so the nice thing too, that Jacinta will talk about on the pre and post opportunities, is some of the value adds as it relates to some of the things that are included. And many of our guests choose to do both pre and post cruise opportunities, right, Jacinta? So let's come back on camera here, and we'll talk about that. There we are. So, come on back, Jacinta. I noticed
my hand slipped. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So I know that you had a desire to talk a little bit about pre and post, as well as air and things yes. that we do. And so I'll let you take it away there.
Yes, you were just in the flow there, so I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted to go back for just a moment to the wine-themed cruises. Now, certainly there's wine on every single cruise, but there are specific designated wine cruises. On this itinerary, there are specific dates for spring, summer, and fall. So there are opportunities to do that. Those are enhanced voyages that have extra activities, experts on board, some special experiences. So if you are a fan of wine and want a little extra, those are dates that we could discuss. Not to say that you won't have that on any of the regular sailings, because this is an area where you will definitely have a wealth of art, architecture, history, culture, absolutely cuisine in terms of food and wine and other beverages. on these cruises. Now, I did want to talk about the cruise tour, which is a combination of the 7-night river cruise with a pre and or post land extension. In this case, we're talking about the new Geneva Switzerland pre or post, depending on which direction you're sailing on a specific date, and then the Barcelona extension as well. These are, again, streamlined, enhanced. Your cruise manager, who is your concierge, will be with you the entire time. You have wonderful accommodations in excellent central locations, breakfast included, but tours to the highlights of the local sightseeing are already done for you. You'll also have some time just to explore on your own. It's not overly structured, but everything that you need has been taken care of. You can just show up and enjoy it. You don't have to piece it together. You don't have to do a lot of research and figure out how to get to places. It's a wonderful way to travel. I've certainly done it with the Provence itinerary with Paris and Barcelona, and do recommend it on this new itinerary with Switzerland, which is quite exciting. This is one that I'm actually looking at myself. It's on my wish list. So it makes for a very good combination of land and cruise. And it is an excellent value because so much is included. And the other thing that Brian and I wanted to make sure that you understand is that the river cruising is fairly inclusive. You do have accommodations, your meals, your daily choice of tours and activities. You have active excursions, walking, biking, hiking, some fitness and wellness activities on the vessel as well. And it's a broad range of excursions for different interests. But you also do have beverages included: bottled waters, sodas, beer and wine with lunch and dinner, the happy hour, cocktail hour that Brian had mentioned in passing. I don't know if you caught that detail. So it's quite comprehensive.
Indeed. And so that value proposition is we definitely want to accentuate that. You might think, well, what isn't included? So two things not included, primarily things that you should be aware of. The first is gratuities. So that's totally volitional. You don't have to, right? But frankly, our owners, being European, Rudy Schreiner, Austrian, his wife, Christine Karst from Germany, both grew up on rivers. In any event, they believe in the sort of the strength of gratuities as it relates to the level of service that's provided. And so you can do it on board, you can do it before you go, you can do the envelopes at the end, or you don't have to do it. Again, it's completely volitional, but that is something that would be recommended out of pocket at the end of the cruise or before you go, or not at all. And then the other thing is, since we do mimosas in the morning, and as Jacinta mentioned, beer and wine, lunch and dinner, we do the cocktail party every night. That is a happy median. But if you want that cosmopolitan at 10 o'clock at night, that little nightcap bar, that will be out of pocket. However, keep in mind, the ships that do have later departure times, so the ship is in port in these villages or towns or whatnot, we encourage our guests, even though there's local colloquial entertainment on board in the evening for guests who stay on board, many of our guests choose to get off the ship at night and kind of go wander around in the evening in these very wonderful places. And they wind up at some local watering hole, maybe for a glass of something. The nice thing is they're paying for it there off the ship, but they're not also subsidizing the bar back on board. If they were back on at the ship at the bar, they would pay for that as well. So that's kind of our happy medium as far as gratuities and as far as the bar bill, if that works for you, hopefully. And it seems to work.
In my experience working with travelers, that seems to be entirely sufficient and very reasonable. If you want something above and beyond, you can certainly get it. And gratuities are optional and at discretion. I've had very good service experiences with AMA. My clients have as well. Usually they're just so impressed with the level of service that they will follow the guidelines for the gratuities or even exceed them. On a case-by-case basis, they can make that decision. That has not been an issue. Now, one of the big questions that I get is what time of year This is an itinerary that you can do in spring, summer, fall. As I said, there are specific wine cruises in each season. It comes down to, when you're available, when you're interested in traveling. There are advantages to every season.
Yep.
So there isn't necessarily, a bad time or an off-season time to go. We can discuss that. We're keeping the new series of previews, these previews, very short, so that you get to see the highlights of the itinerary in a very tight time frame. We're not going to give you a lot of information, but I'm available to discuss this itinerary and any of the others to find the perfect fit in terms of itinerary, time of year, all those other details, and that can be done on an individual basis. So we're, just going to wrap up here. If there's anything else, Brian, that you can think of that we haven't covered?
I think that's it. I would say, what we're seeing just in general, first I want to again say thank you, as it says on the image there, so much for taking time out to watch our little video vignette. To Jacinta, thank you, and to all of you. I'll just quickly say that a lot of people we're seeing, and Jacinta, I'm sure will echo this, are coming off the sidelines. Right, we've been bunkered down, for a while, right? And now things are really starting to open up, such that, as I said earlier, we're about 30% booked for next year in 2023. We're seeing new bookings coming closer in, which didn't used to happen in the river cruise sector. Usually people booked well in advance, but because of the last few years, obviously, with people not really traveling that much per se, we're also seeing, for people that want to go this year, we're seeing a lot of closer in bookings coming up for this summer, fall, and actually our Christmas market cruises as well. We're already over 70% booked. So if you want to go at Christmas time this year, and we do French itineraries even at that time of year, and there's certain ways the French celebrate Christmas as well that are kind of fun and unique. Think about that as well, right? So that's what I just want to mention. It's always a good idea, because river ships are smaller, to act promptly, and there's inherent certainly aspects about river ships now that are more in vogue per se than I would say even 2 years ago, right? So that's my parting thought.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because these are very small vessels. You're talking about 100 to 140 people maximum. You're not talking 1,000 or 3,000. This is quite the opposite of the ocean cruising on large vessels. But I do want to say I just wrote about fall dates in my May newsletter, because there is some availability on the France itineraries specifically, which are always very popular. And so it is possible to arrange for this year, but certainly we can look at next year as well.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well,
so, Brian, I'd like to thank you for partnering with me again and being my co-host on another one of these quick virtual tours through destinations. And I think we'll say see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Au revoir.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Happy travels.